Pokemon cards won't be sitting at the top as comfortably as people expect in 2026, as other TCG competitors are getting more serious, including Yu-Gi-Oh! And One Piece. Though before I get into what's actually happening, I am gifting a subscriber this Miriam Special Illustration Rare. Now, if I do reply to your comment with this Milotic emoji, then well done, this card is coming your way. And also, hey, if you are a newcomer to the channel, welcome. My name's Phil. I've been making content here for about 2 years now around Pokemon collecting and Pokemon investing. Definitely feel free to subscribe to join the journey. Though if we look at 2025 as an entire year, other TCGs have just pretty much sat on the sidelines with only a few moments of brilliance. Pretty much Pokemon just dominated the whole TCG space. And I mean, this has been the case ever since Prismatic Evolutions released, and literally Pokemon didn't even have any missteps in 2025. And I would probably say it's the strongest year for Pokemon cards ever in history. Now, there's a few reasons why Pokemon's dominance was happening, but you know, one area that no one really has added to this puzzle is the fact that Pokemon just hasn't had much competition in terms of other TCG collectibles. Probably the biggest competition in terms of TCG was the Magic Final Fantasy collector box. That was a very hyped product, though, you know, other than that, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Dragon Ball, and even One Piece for a lot of the year were just on the sidelines while Pokemon just dominated the market. Though as we approach 2026, there seems to be a shift and a fair bit more competition in this space. So obviously right now, One Piece is just starting to ramp up back again like 2024 levels, though one area that's actually caught my eye, and I think a lot of people are interested about right now, is Yu-Gi-Oh's new Overframe cards, which have been revealed and they're going to be entering the TCG space in 2026. So, you know, for years, collectors have begged Yu-Gi-Oh to have full art cards. And while we've had stuff like Rush Duel release and they've had, you know, they've tried different variations of this, they didn't really satisfy that demand. Though check out these new Overframe cards that are really shaking up the space right now. Okay, so as I said, Yu-Gi-Oh has entered the space. It's causing a lot of discussion points around this. Main one being is because Yu-Gi-Oh has they've been very stubborn in a way and they've never really changed anything with their cards. If you ever collected Yu-Gi-Oh as a kid, pretty much if you see a Yu-Gi-Oh card today, other than the fact that they've added new things like, you know, pendulums and Link and, you know, XYZ and all this stuff, the kind of way that Yu-Gi-Oh cards look are pretty much identical to what they look like in 2002, albeit with kind of different new mechanics that have entered. In terms of that, a lot of people have just been begging for full art Yu-Gi-Oh cards. It's been such a big thing that people have asked for, and Yu-Gi-Oh's never really bothered, or Konami have never really bothered, you know, introducing these. Though it seems that this is actually the first time they will be, and a lot of people are getting super hyped for this. The one reason why people care so much about these Overframe cards is because it's something that's been desired for such a long time. It almost feels like Yu-Gi-Oh's never just wanted to cross into that field, because it's like that kind of means it's a loss for them, because it's like, oh wow, we now need to do this to compete with these other TCGs, but we've always been the dominant TCG. You know, it kind of feels like, hey, no, we're the kind of kings of TCG. Our whole premise is about TCG, but I don't feel making Overframe or full art cards is copying it all. I feel like it's a very necessary step, so check these out. So this new OCG, which is the Japanese version, Limit Over Collection, The Heroes, releases February 28, 2026, and you'll also get a Limit Over Collection, The Rivals, which releases March 20, 2026. So they do release soon. In terms of an English release date, from what I know, I haven't seen anything of yet. I do imagine they will be coming to the English TCG, but, you know, right now I don't have any information right there in front of me that I can confirm that, but, you know, very likely that they will be. So the first one is the Ball Load Liberator Dragon. Now, the Overframe card looks very cool, comes out in the space, still keeps a lot of that same vibe. You can still see that the Yu-Gi-Oh text is at the bottom like it usually is, though the cards are actually now coming out of frame, which has never been done in Yu-Gi-Oh. This is a new thing, as you can see with the Liberator Dragon. It is coming out. You can see arms, everything is like moving out of the frame, looking really awesome as well. I'm really interested to see this, especially with the classics like, you know, Blue Eyes, Dark Magician. That will bring in a lot of old school collectors, and not only that, those collectors are in a higher income bracket as well, so they will be wanting to add these to their collections because they're very new, very fresh. Here with the Starving Venom Fusion Dragon of the 4 Heavenly Dragons, the Overframe card as well looks awesome. I'm really liking the designs of these. I think they come out a lot. They actually make it super dynamic. They haven't gone too crazy with these where you can't read the text. The text is still very much eligible, and they've kept that bottom piece very easy to read the effects, and, you know, Yu-Gi-Oh effects can be very kind of complicated as well. So it's important that it's very eligible to read, though I like it. I think the way they're kind of making this and the design of it looks really great, and I think there will be a big market for these. Now also, just a quick one, with all these new TCGs and new products entering the space, one of the best ways to track all of these if you're adding them to your collection is with the Collector app, who are the sponsors of today's video. Now, if you're serious about tracking tracking your collectibles, Collector is one of the smartest tools you can have. It's a modern portfolio tracker that shows you how your collection is performing over time, and also it shows you what the current market prices are. Collector has a wide range of collectibles, so whether you're collecting Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, One Piece, or Dragon Ball, it stores all that information for you. Now, if you upgrade to Collector Pro, there's a bunch of features that become available to you. One of them is the ability to use your phone's camera to easily scan photos of your cards to add them to your collection. And one of my personal favorites is the Max tab. The Max tab lets you extend pricing data past the usual 1-year graphs, so you can see how products travel over the very long term. This is very useful for anyone who likes investing in collectibles. Now, if you do want to try Collector out, you can actually download the Collector app, and all those details are in the video's description. A big thanks to Collector for sponsoring today's video. Now let's jump back into it. Now here we have the Neo Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon, the Photon Howling. As you can see with these XYZ cards, they just look really, really cool when it comes out. This is probably my favorite so far of what we've seen so far. And like I said, just so dynamic. It really makes a difference. Having this in a PSA 10 slab is really cool as well, especially if you like collecting Yu-Gi-Oh. Now, a lot of these cards that I've shown you aren't really the classic Yu-Gi-Oh monsters that we've seen, but for a lot of people who collected, back in that 2000s era, a lot of people would still think that this is a new Yu-Gi-Oh card to them because they're so used to collecting, Dark Magician, Blue Eyes, or Red Eyes, Black Dragon, that kind of era. Then you had the Elemental Hero era as well. A lot of people didn't stay with Yu-Gi-Oh after 5Ds with the Synchro era, and especially with Pendulum Monsters. For a lot of collectors, that would be kind of new territory for them. Now, moving on to the Crimson Dragon Overframe card here. Super sick artwork. These are really, really taking a step up. Really fresh and exciting for Yu-Gi-Oh! And as a long-time Yu-Gi-Oh! Collector, I'm getting hyped for these cards, man. To me, they look just insane. They look so exciting. They look so different, so needed as well. As if you've been collecting Yu-Gi-Oh! For a while, you'll know they've been needed. I collected Yu-Gi-Oh! So much as a kid. So for me to see this, played as well, played a lot of Master Duel. So for me to see these, it's really making me excited as well. And I do think a lot of competition is going to come for Pokemon right now because this is a big change, especially for Yu-Gi-Oh! Collectors. I mean, if you collect Yu-Gi-Oh!, you'll know there's so many different Blue Eyes White Dragons out there. You've got a few different artworks, but really what people collect and what the rarity is just the little code in the card. That little code makes big difference. Like, if it's SDK001, that's what people are collecting. This will change it a lot, and this is going to be a big stepping point for Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, moving on to some monsters that a lot of people would be more familiar with. Here we have Cyber End Dragon, the Decisive Strike Dragon. I think a lot of people would know the Cyber Dragons along with the Cyber End Dragon. That was when Yu-Gi-Oh! Was in that high peak period. Elemental Heroes, Cyber Dragons all released. That was around like that 2005 period to 2007. Super sick card as well. Comes out of the frame. Love this artwork, dude. I love that. As you can see, the wing right there just looks so good how it comes out. Really good designs they've done with these. I'm very excited for them. And I do imagine there will be a big market for these depending how rare they are as well. For that reason, don't think a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh cards go for a lot, but this is going to open up the market a lot. This is going to make a lot of people want to collect these, and especially as I show you some of the cards that a lot of people would be familiar with. And moving right now is the Blue Eyes White Dragon, the White Phantom Beast. Now, as you can see, this is not exactly the classic Blue Eyes White Dragon that was just a normal monster with no effect. This is a different version. Now, of course, that is a sick artwork, dude. That looks really unique, really comes out. The Overframe cards definitely have it. You can see how Blue Eyes White Dragon is using its White Lightning attack in that artwork. I think they've done such a good job with these. I know that there will be a big market who collect these cards. But there is one interesting area about all of these, which I'm very excited about, which is this new Grandmaster Rare. And this is going to be appearing in the Limit Over collection. So you can see here it says, a new rarity, Grandmaster Rare, will be available in the special packs Limit Over Collection The Heroes and Limit Over Collection The Rivals, which are inspired by cards of the protagonist and the rival. The Overframe cards included in this pack include Grandmaster Rare cards engraved with serial numbers from 001 to 100, and each numbered card is an ultra rare card with only one copy in the world, which is going to be, I don't even want to know that's a pretty big thing that they've done there. That's a big shake up. Don't know if I like that too much with that one copy in the world kind of thing. Feels a little bit gimmicky for me personally because, it's much better for a lot of collectors to be able to get it. Though here you can see, which is the Dark Magician, such a sick artwork. This is going to be just ridiculously expensive, though you can see, Yu-Gi-Oh is kind of now opening it up. They're opening up the market. They're doing new things. They're bringing in new rarities. And this is the start. This is what you got to remember. This is now their first kind of moment trying these Overframe cards, they call it. What's going to happen in a few years from now when they get more seasoned with this, when they get more experience, this will be a big shakeup, especially that, there's a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh collectors out there. The problem is the game's got very convoluted, but the collectors out there, they do want to collect Yu-Gi-Oh, but the problem is it just feels like they're collecting the same old cards. It doesn't feel like there's anything new coming for them. This is going to really be an interesting stepping point for the TCG. Now, one thing that's important to note about Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh's history, because what it seems right now is that Pokemon is just at the top of their game, though, once upon a time, Yu-Gi-Oh did actually dethrone Pokemon, and it was the dominant TCG for, a very long time. Back in 1999, when Pokemon was at the top of their game, Yu-Gi-Oh cards were about to enter, and by 2002, that was when the first set, The Legend of the Blue Eyes White Dragon, came along with the Yu-Gi-Oh anime airing, and Yu-Gi-Oh literally dominated the space. Yu-Gi-Oh had their famous starter decks, and to be honest, the TCG, playing the game was actually far more interesting and dynamic than Pokemon. These days it's very different though, because Yu-Gi-Oh is nowhere near Pokemon's success, and Pokemon has even overtaken Yu-Gi-Oh in the TCG space, which is kind of a big deal because, Yu-Gi-Oh's whole premise is about trading cards, and that's what it's all entirely based on. But, this is overall a very big positive, as Pokemon needs a bit of competition to, keep prices stabilized. Like I said, we've had just way too much dominance around Pokemon cards for, about a whole year now. The same goes with One Piece, with the massive amount of collectors that are moving there, and it just opens the doors for a lot more TCGs seeing how they'll play out in this space. But, as much as all these new changes are entering, there's a few questions relating to how you can actually collect in this crazy market right now, because it does seem it's getting a bit more expensive. We'll actually break it down in this video right here. Within this video on screen, I actually go in how to collect Pokemon cards in today's crazy market. If you enjoyed this video, click the video on screen. Appreciate you watching, and I'll see you on the next video.